The morning had begun like any other. Sunlight filtered gently through our bedroom window, casting warm rays on the neatly organized toys scattered across the floor. My daughter, Amara, was humming softly to herself, her natural curls bouncing as she moved. I couldn't help but smile at her innocence, the joy she carried in her small, confident frame. That joy, however, would soon be tested in a way neither of us could have anticipated. By mid-morning, Amara's school called. I could feel my heart sink even before I answered. The teacher's voice was gentle, yet heavy with the gravity of the situation. "Mrs. Johnson, I need to speak with you about an incident. Amara, she's been having some issues with her classmates. They made comments about her hair." A sharp pang hit my chest. My daughter's beautiful natural curls, symbols of her heritage, of pride, of identity, had become a target. I tried to remain calm, promising myself I would handle this with care and composure. But as I listened to the details, my emotions oscillated between anger, hurt, and disbelief. When Amara arrived home, I knelt down, meeting her eyes. She tried to smile, but the sadness in her gaze was unmistakable. "They said my hair was weird, Mom, that it's ugly, that I should straighten it so it looks normal," she whispered, voice trembling. My heart broke. The innocence of childhood, the purity of self-expression, had collided violently with ignorance and cruelty. In that moment, I made a vow. We would not allow this to diminish her spirit. This was not merely about hair. It was about identity, pride, and self-worth. And so we began to plan, not just a personal response, but a larger movement that could empower children everywhere to embrace themselves fully. Over the following weeks, we documented the incident. Conversations with teachers, administrators, and even other parents revealed a disheartening pattern. Many Black children faced subtle and sometimes overt discrimination for their natural hair. Our initial anger transformed into a determination to educate, advocate, and create real change. I began sharing Amara's story on social media. A simple post, a photo of her radiant curls, paired with a heartfelt explanation of the bullying incident, resonated far beyond our circle. Comments poured in from parents, educators, and children worldwide, many sharing similar experiences. It became clear we were not alone. We decided to launch a hashtag campaign, #CurlsAndConfidence. The goal was simple but powerful: empower Black girls to embrace their natural hair, while educating communities about respect, identity, and cultural pride. We encouraged parents to share their children's stories, teachers to join the conversation, and young girls to post pictures proudly displaying their natural curls. Almost immediately, the movement gained traction. Posts went viral, media outlets reached out, and what began as a personal story became a global conversation. We were hearing from children in different states, parents from other countries, educators, even policymakers. The momentum was unstoppable, and our initial pain had transformed into collective empowerment. By the second month, we realized the movement had potential far beyond social media engagement. We partnered with local schools to create workshops focused on self-esteem, cultural pride, and anti-bullying strategies. Amara, though just a child, was invited to share her story with classrooms and assemblies. Watching her speak with poise and confidence was awe-inspiring. She was no longer a victim. She was a symbol of resilience and empowerment. We also created visual content, short videos highlighting children sharing their experiences, tutorials on styling natural hair, and inspirational messages. Each post carried a message. Your hair is beautiful, your identity is powerful, and your voice matters. During this phase, we were approached by a major online magazine. They wanted to feature Amara and the movement. The story emphasized not only the personal incident, but the larger societal implications. It highlighted the importance of representation, the harmful effects of bias, and the necessity of fostering environments where children could embrace their natural selves with fear or ridicule. The reach of Curls and Confidence expanded exponentially. We connected with parents and educators globally, organizing webinars, discussion panels, and virtual meetups. Each session was an opportunity to educate, advocate, and inspire. We even launched an interactive platform where children could share artwork, writings, and photos celebrating their natural hair. As the movement gained visibility, we noticed a shift. Schools began to adopt new policies on hair discrimination. Local governments engaged in discussions, and influential figures in entertainment and politics started voicing support. The narrative had moved from a personal story to a societal conversation, a ripple turning into a wave. Every comment, message, and post reinforced a vital truth. A painful incident had catalyzed something far greater than ourselves. The bullying that once brought tears had birthed empowerment, community, and awareness. With growth came resistance. Some detractors claimed the movement was unnecessary, exaggerated, or divisive. These voices, however, only strengthened our resolve. I understood that meaningful change often faced pushback, especially when challenging deep-seated norms. We addressed resistance by emphasizing education over confrontation. Through workshops, public speaking, and consistent social media engagement, we created narratives that emphasized understanding, empathy, and shared human values. The message was simple. Celebrating identity does not diminish others. It uplifts communities. Amara's role became central. Despite being young, she carried the movement with authenticity and courage. Her voice, once silenced by bullying, became a beacon for countless children experiencing similar challenges. By mid-year, the movement reached a pivotal milestone: partnerships with major educational organizations. These partnerships allowed us to implement structured programs, teaching cultural pride, self-confidence, and anti-bullying strategies. Schools across the country incorporated our modules into their curriculum, and the hashtag campaign continued to grow on a global scale. We also started receiving invitations from policymakers. Legislative discussions on anti-discrimination laws now included conversations about hair, identity, and cultural expression. Our movement had evolved into advocacy, policy influence, and cultural change. The personal pain that started this journey had transformed into societal impact. It had been months since Amara's initial incident, but the memory of that cruel, judgmental gaze still lingered in my mind. Every time she adjusted a curl or smiled at her reflection, I remembered how a child's natural expression could provoke cruelty. The movement, Curls and Confidence, had grown, but the challenge was now bigger than we had imagined. We were moving beyond local schools into national attention, and with national attention came scrutiny. One morning, I received an email from a school district official. The subject line read, "Policy Review Request, Hair Discrimination Concerns." I clicked open cautiously. The message was formal, respectful, yet bureaucratic. They were reviewing anti-bullying policies in schools across the district, and our movement had been cited as part of the discussion. This was the opportunity we had been waiting for, but also a high-stakes test. Implementation of policy change is never simple. It involves negotiation, strategic persuasion, and compelling evidence. I knew that to influence decision-makers effectively, we would need to present not just anecdotes, but measurable outcomes, emotional resonance, and societal benefits. Over the next several days, my team and I meticulously compiled data: incidents reported before and after the movement's launch, engagement metrics from social media, testimonials from parents and educators, and videos of children embracing their natural hair, all became part of a powerful portfolio. When we arrived at the first district meeting, the room was filled with administrators, board members, and educators. Some faces reflected curiosity, others skepticism, and a few were plainly dismissive. I took a deep breath and reminded myself that every assumption against us had already fueled our strategy. We had anticipated doubt, and now it was time to convert it into impact. I began, "Thank you for having us. Today is not just about Amara's story. It's about countless children whose self-expression has been stifled, whose identity has been questioned, and whose confidence has been challenged simply for embracing who they are. We are here to present evidence, insights, and strategies that demonstrate why this issue matters and how it can be addressed constructively." The room listened as I guided them through our findings. Stories of children transformed from timid, self-conscious students into proud, confident young individuals resonated. Metrics showed reduced bullying reports, increased engagement in classroom discussions, and higher levels of participation in school activities among children embracing their natural hair. One board member, skeptical, asked, "How do you ensure this isn't just a social media trend that fades?" I smiled and replied, "This is not a trend. This is identity, culture, and self-respect.
When children understand the value of their identity, it is ingrained. Social media amplified the movement, yes, but the transformation is internal, lasting, and measurable. I noticed a subtle change in the room. Skepticism had not disappeared, but curiosity had replaced condescension. Eyes that had been indifferent were now attentive. The meeting concluded with a request: provide a comprehensive guide and toolkit for implementing anti-bullying hair policies, supported by workshops and educational content.
Back at the office, we celebrated quietly. This was more than an achievement. It was a validation of months of tireless work. Yet the real challenge was scaling. How could we ensure that schools across the nation, and even globally, adopted these principles? How could we transform awareness into action, conversation into policy, and support into sustainable cultural change? We began creating a detailed curriculum for schools, lesson plans on self-identity, workshops for teachers, discussion guides for students, and resource packets for parents. Each module was carefully designed to be interactive, engaging, and culturally sensitive. Amara, though young, became an ambassador. We recorded videos where she shared her experience, offered advice, and encouraged other children to embrace their natural hair. Watching her speak with poise and confidence inspired not just the audience, but our entire team. The narrative had shifted. Amara was no longer a victim. She was a leader, a catalyst for change, and a symbol of resilience. The hashtag Curls and Confidence continued to grow. Parents from other countries reached out to share stories of their children facing similar challenges. Educators requested collaborations to integrate our curriculum into their schools. Media outlets featured our journey, highlighting both the personal and societal impact. During one particularly moving session, a teacher shared, "I never realized how much I had unconsciously perpetuated bias in my classroom. After implementing your modules, I see children flourishing in ways I hadn't anticipated. Their confidence has improved, and the atmosphere is more inclusive." This feedback was both humbling and motivating. The movement had transformed from a single personal incident into a broader cultural shift, one that empowered children, educated communities, and influenced institutional change. I paused to address the audience directly. Have you ever faced a moment that seemed devastating but had the potential to change everything? This is the power of action, resilience, and community. If you've ever felt underestimated or silenced, remember, one voice can ignite a global movement. Subscribe and join our community to be part of this journey, to learn and to contribute to change. By the end of Part 4, the trajectory was clear. Our initial pain, the cruel bullying of a young girl, had blossomed into a powerful worldwide movement, influencing education, policy, and culture. The next steps would involve broader legislative efforts, amplified advocacy, and continued empowerment of children everywhere. By the time we reached Part 5 of our journey, it was clear that hashtag Curls and Confidence had evolved beyond social media campaigns, school workshops, and national attention. The movement now needed systemic reinforcement, policy change, legislative backing, and institutional recognition. One crisp morning, I received a formal invitation from a state legislator's office. They were hosting a hearing on anti-discrimination policies in schools, specifically regarding hair and identity expression. This was the opportunity we had been waiting for, a chance to impact legislation that would protect countless children from the subtle and overt biases we had fought against for months. Preparation was intense. My team and I compiled every testimonial, survey, and data point we had collected since the inception of the movement. We created a presentation detailing the psychological impact of bullying based on hair, the transformative effects of acceptance and cultural pride, and successful case studies from schools already implementing our curriculum. On the day of the hearing, the chamber was buzzing. Legislators, activists, educators, and media personnel filled the room. My heart raced, not out of fear, but out of the weight of responsibility. I understood that the stakes extended beyond Amara. They extended to every child who had been marginalized for their natural appearance. I began my testimony. Ladies and gentlemen, this is not just about hair. This is about identity, dignity, and the right of every child to feel safe and proud in their own skin. When children are targeted for their natural hair, it sends a message that who they are is unacceptable. Our movement, #CurlsAndConfidence, has shown that embracing identity builds confidence, resilience, and community. And today, we urge you to translate awareness into actionable policy that protects every child from discrimination. I shared Amara's story, showing before and after impacts, her confidence, her willingness to speak publicly, and her role in inspiring other children. The room listened intently, some nodding, others scribbling notes. Questions followed, technical, emotional, and ethical. I addressed each with clarity, citing data, offering solutions, and presenting a roadmap for implementation. The moment of suspense came when legislators deliberated in private. We waited anxiously outside the chamber. Finally, the doors opened. A senior lawmaker approached and said, "Your presentation has made an undeniable impact. We are moving forward with drafting legislation that incorporates protections against hair discrimination in schools, alongside educational modules similar to your curriculum." The relief and elation were overwhelming. Months of relentless advocacy, countless testimonials, and tireless work had culminated in this moment. But this was just the beginning. Enforcing the legislation, monitoring its implementation, and ensuring cultural adoption would require continued effort. Following the legislative breakthrough, our movement took on an even larger dimension. Media outlets worldwide covered the story. A young Black girl's personal struggle had sparked a global movement, influenced policy, and reshaped cultural norms around hair and identity. Schools nationwide began adopting the recommended curriculum, emphasizing pride, respect, and cultural understanding. Teachers reported increased confidence among students, decreased bullying incidents, and a more inclusive classroom environment. Parents shared stories of children expressing themselves proudly for the first time. We organized conferences, webinars, and community events where children, parents, and educators could share experiences and learn from each other. Amara, now recognized as a young ambassador, spoke at events, encouraging peers and inspiring younger children to embrace themselves fully. Her voice, once silenced by bullying, had become a beacon of empowerment. Even beyond schools, cultural perceptions began to shift. Brands, media outlets, and influencers started celebrating natural hair, challenging outdated beauty standards, and fostering inclusivity. Social media hashtags multiplied, sparking discussions, artwork, and storytelling that reinforced pride and resilience. Throughout this phase, we continued to engage our audience directly. Have you ever witnessed a moment where pain transformed into purpose? Every time you feel underestimated, remember that your voice has power. Subscribe and join our community. Together, we can transform stories of struggle into waves of change. The movement had reached a critical juncture. It was no longer just a personal story or even a national campaign. It was a cultural shift. Children were learning that self-expression is a right. Parents were advocating for inclusion. Educators were adopting progressive practices, and society at large was beginning to recognize the importance of identity and respect. By the end of Part 5, the narrative arc was clear. From a cruel act of bullying to national legislative attention, #CurlsAndConfidence had proven that systemic change is possible when courage, advocacy, and community converge. The next and final part would highlight global impact, legacy, and the enduring influence of one family's decision to turn pain into purpose. The movement that began as a private struggle in a small classroom had now grown into a global phenomenon. Curls and Confidence had traveled across borders, touching families in different countries, inspiring children to embrace their natural hair, and sparking international conversations about identity, pride, and self-expression. One evening, as I scrolled through the messages pouring into our official social media channels, I was astounded. Parents from London, Toronto, Sydney, and Johannesburg shared photos of their children proudly displaying their natural hair. Teachers in India and Brazil reported positive changes in classroom dynamics, noting increased self-confidence and peer support among students. Even local and national media outlets in Europe and Africa had picked up the story, framing it as an example of grassroots activism turning personal pain into global empowerment. At that moment, I realized that what started with one small incident had transformed into a powerful movement reshaping cultural norms around the world. Amara, my daughter, now stood as a symbol of resilience and courage. She had evolved from a child bullied for her natural curls into a young ambassador of empowerment, inspiring millions. The culmination of our efforts was evident during the Global Conference on Cultural Identity and Education, where I was invited to speak alongside educators, policymakers, and activists from more than 30 countries. Standing on that stage, looking at a diverse audience whose faces reflected the stories we had touched, I felt both pride and responsibility. I began my speech. This movement started with a single child, a single moment of pain, and a single family's decision not to remain silent. Today, we stand here together as a global community, committed to ensuring that every child feels seen, valued, and proud of who they are. Our hair, our culture, our identity, these are not just personal traits. They are powerful expressions of self. And when we nurture that, we nurture the future. The audience erupted in applause. Teachers shared how students were thriving. Parents spoke of newfound confidence in their children. And young participants expressed their gratitude for being part of something that celebrated them for exactly who they were. It was clear. The movement had achieved more than I had imagined. Legislative victories, educational programs, and community workshops were now complemented by a global cultural shift. Children no longer feared judgment for their natural appearance. They celebrated it. Families felt empowered to advocate for inclusion, and societies began recognizing the deep significance of identity and self-expression. While the success of Curls and Confidence was extraordinary, sustaining such change required continued dedication, innovation, and engagement. We launched an interactive online platform allowing children, parents, and educators to share stories, access educational materials, and participate in global campaigns. This platform became a hub for creativity, dialogue, and empowerment, ensuring that the movement would not fade over time. Amara's role continued to grow. She participated in international panels, appeared in educational videos, and mentored younger children experiencing similar challenges. Her presence inspired confidence and encouraged other children to share their voices, knowing that their experiences mattered and could affect real change. We also collaborated with global media organizations to produce a documentary highlighting the journey of Curls and Confidence, emphasizing the importance of cultural pride, self-acceptance, and advocacy. The documentary reached millions, sparking conversations in schools, homes, and online communities worldwide. Throughout this journey, we made a conscious effort to engage directly with our audience. At the end of every workshop, webinar, or video, I would address viewers. Have you ever faced a moment where someone doubted you or tried to silence you? Remember, your voice has power. One small action, one brave stand, can ignite a movement that changes lives. Subscribe and join our community, and together we can continue to create stories of empowerment, resilience, and pride. The story of Amara, the bullied child, had transformed into a blueprint for global activism. Families, educators, and communities were now equipped to tackle bias, foster inclusion, and celebrate identity. And while the journey had begun with pain, it had culminated in empowerment, legacy, and a movement that would continue to inspire generations. Looking back, I understood the profound lesson. Adversity can catalyze extraordinary change. When we choose courage over silence, action over despair, and unity over division, we can transform even the most personal struggles into a global force for good. As I concluded the final speech at the international conference, Amara by my side, I looked out at the sea of faces, young and old, inspired and hopeful, and I knew with absolute certainty that the movement we had begun would continue to grow, educate, and empower for years to come. Join us, share your story, embrace your identity, and together, let's create a world where every child can stand tall, proud, and unapologetically themselves.